Yeah, so judging by all the messages I received regarding this, it was pretty clear that I needed to make some kind of video about this. But I also think I can share a few things I learned along the way to what you see here. It's actually been quite of a journey. So first I'll just say this has nothing to do with gaps between gears or not having enough gears or enough fast gears or whatever. This is not meant to start that kind of war that only the people who has too much time on their hands likes to take part in. It's all about noise. Because the first thing I learned going back to a more pure race bike geometry style frame like the Emonda is the shorter chainstay. It is probably not really optimized for a 1x drivetrain. I didn't think 5mm shortest chainstays would make that much of a difference, but the chain angle on the extreme end of the cassette makes the chain really chug on those narrow wide chain tooths, and that noise was pretty much driving me crazy. I didn't really experience the same thing on the open or on my previous Bokeh, for example, which has a lot longer chainstays, so the chain angle is not as extreme. So my first idea was actually to try a few different chain rings to see if I can just make it a little bit quieter or bearable at least. So I actually picked up the two new chain rings to try. The first one was a Garbaruk, also 42, and then eventually an Absolute Black 42 chainring. And just comparing all those chain rings, it's pretty easy to guess which one of those would be the most quiet one. If you look at the Garbaruk teeth, for example, they are much longer, so that would mean, at least to me, that they would interfere with the chain a bit longer than the other two chain rings. And that was pretty much what I found out once I tried all those combinations. I also talked to my friend at my local bike shop, and he suggested that I would try a different chain because the Shimano chain is pretty stiff compared to a lot of other chains. So I picked up a new PYC chain, and the quietest combination I could get from a 1x system on this particular bike was the Absolute Black chain ring with the PYC chain. And the worst combination was the Garbaruk chainring with the Shimano chain. It's really hard to make good audio comparisons with the mic that kind of picks up everything. This is the best I can do. You just have to take my word for that. But even that Absolute Black combination wasn't really enough for me. I couldn't handle that kara noise. So I started to think about going back to a 2x setup, but I wanted to try to keep the cost down because there's some other plans in the future that you probably can figure out. So I started to keep an eye out on all the second-hand market here in Japan, and one thing that popped up was this Dura-Ace Di2 front derailleur, unused, in box, but the same price as an Ultegra Di2, so I kind of just jumped on that. Unfortunately, my beloved THM clavicula crank is a 130 BCD, which means I can't put on compact chain rings. I can't go a full standard 5339. I'm just not strong enough for that stuff, especially here in the mountains, and I don't need to pretend that I have a bigger penis than I do. I still have my Eastern crank, and when I started to investigate my options there, I came across the subcompact options they have for that crank, which I thought was a pretty nice compromise, because I've been riding 4211 as my fastest gear for 4 years or something like that, and I know I don't really need anything more. So I could find in stock a 4732 subcompact set for the Eastern crank I could pair that with a 1130 cassette, which means my gear ratio would be pretty much the same for climbing as my 40-40 that I'm used to. So happy days, I thought, but once I got the chainring, installed the crank, and put on the front derailleur, I realized I could not get the derailleur low enough above the big chainring. It seems that the Emonda smallest chain set you can do for 2x is actually a compact or a 50-34. If I had known that, I would obviously have got that in the first place. But I still wanted to see if I could make this work and understand I could get it to shift pretty good, I thought at least. But once I was out on the bike, the shifting was not crisp, and I had dropped quite a few chains on both outside and the inside, and because I'm so stubborn and didn't put on the chain catcher, of course I scratched up the paint on this bottom bracket shell. God damn it. So I realized I couldn't go on with that. If there's something worse than a noisy dry train, is a dry train that doesn't shift good. So up on the internet again and search until I found like the last compact set on, I think it was Wiggle. Yeah, Wiggle. That was in stock. Pretty much blew my budget for this whole project, but what the hell. Noise, man, if you can fix that noise. So once I got the chainring, put that on the crank, I could easily put the front derailleur at the correct height, and the shifting was much smoother, both up and down and left and right and whatever. And out on the bike, so nice, crisp shifting and quiet, both in the 34-30 and the 50-11. That's all though, it's too many numbers. So the last little extra step I took, I actually put on a Shimano 12-speed XTR chain on this 11-speed setup, and that just brought the noise down even more, and the shifting is still just as crisp as with a proper 11-speed chain. This will not work on a 1x setup with an 11-speed front narrow wire ring though. I know that from personal experience, so don't try that. But for 2x system for Shimano, and apparently Easton as well, works fine, and noise, nothing. Well, nothing. I wouldn't say nothing, but noise is very acceptable. Now the big question, how much weight did I add on this in the end? Because I did add weight. I did take note during the initial swap with the subcompact chainrings. So what I removed was the THM crank at 371 grams, the cassette at 326, and that was the XTR 11-40. So the initial weight added with the subcompact ring was 559 grams for the crank, 270 grams for the Ultegra 11-30 cassette. I should point out that I went with the Ultegra cassette to keep the price down. I couldn't really justify an Durace cassette here when I know the 12-speed is just around the corner. 106 grams for the front derailleur and the Di2 cable. Unfortunately, I had to add another extra 25 grams for swapping over from the subcompact to the compact chainrings. So in total, I added 363 grams, not counting the difference in chain weight. Totally forgot to take that into account, but since I used a lighter chain on the 1x and the 2x has a shorter chain, I think it's a pretty much toss up. A few grams here and there. Don't be mad. So you can see this from the negative side. I added a bunch of grams and a bunch of complexity. I look at it more on a positive side. Now I have even more opportunities for dropping weight and spending money on bike parts in the future. See, there's always a silver lining. The THM crank will not be forgotten either. That's my pride and joy, and it might be time to put that on something else. So not much riding in this video, so I will leave you with a little descending clip, pod racing style, me snatching a KOM the first time in forever. Nothing to be proud of, I know, yeah.